I hereby declare you official temporary deputies of the Mayberry Police Force. At ease. That means you can put your hands down.
I guess it isn't such a small world after all.
That's right. We're always saying what a small world it is, when actually it really isn't a small world.
Do you still remember the time when you just turned on the TV and the whole family would gather together to watch a show that made everyone smile? That time when Mayberry, a peaceful little town in America, became the place we wanted to escape to from the chaos of daily life. That time when the cheerful whistling of the Andy Griffith Show was enough to make our hearts feel warm and light. But did you know behind that gentle, humorous, and heartwarming appearance, there were actually many dark secrets behind the scenes that few people expected? The kind Aunt Bee barely spoke to Andy for many years. Deputy Barney Fife was never even in the original plan. And Andy Griffith himself, the man loved by the entire country, initially didn't want to star in this series at all. Today, let's go back together and uncover 20 of the strangest and darkest facts about the Andy Griffith Show. 20. Aunt Bee and Andy Griffith barely spoke to each other in real life. Do you still remember the image of Aunt Bee being so gentle, always cooking delicious meals and caring for Andy with a warm smile in every episode? However, the truth behind the camera is shocking to many. Frances Bavier and Andy Griffith barely spoke to each other for many years. She often kept a cold distance from the entire cast, rarely joined in the jokes, and had clear tension with Andy. Some crew members recalled that Andy sometimes lost patience with her to the point that Don Knotts had to step in and say, "Be nice to Frances, she's a really good actress." Frances Bavier, a serious stage actress, felt that the role of Aunt Bee had completely buried her artistic talent. She was frustrated that the public only called her Aunt Bee in real life, and she even had to see a therapist to escape the shadow of the character. The tension was so bad that she openly got upset when other cast members were given funnier lines. After the show ended, she lived in complete isolation in Siler City, North Carolina, and almost cut off all contact with her former co-stars. It wasn't until her final years when her health was failing that she called Andy Griffith to apologize for being so difficult and causing so much tension. It was a late, tearful, and regretful conversation. 19. Don Knotts left the show after season 5, a void that could never be filled. One of the most heartbreaking and shocking moments for fans of the Andy Griffith Show was the departure of Barney Fife after season 5. Don Knotts only signed a 5-year contract because he believed Andy Griffith would end the show after that time. During the 5th season, he started looking for new work and signed a contract with Universal Studios to make movies. The most ironic and bitter part, right after Knotts had signed the new contract, Andy Griffith suddenly changed his mind and decided to continue the series for several more seasons. At that point, Knotts could no longer back out. He later shared in an interview with deep regret, "If I had known Andy was going to continue, of course I would have stayed. I love this show so much." As a result, Barney Fife, the character who brought the most laughter and was the comedic soul of Mayberry, disappeared from the main cast. The team tried to replace him with Warren Ferguson, but the new character never created the magical chemistry or explosive laughter that Barney did. Many fans openly admitted the show just wasn't the same after Barney left. 18. Barney Fife almost didn't exist in the show. A phone call that changed history. Hard to believe, right? The most beloved character who delivered countless iconic, funny moments in the Andy Griffith Show almost never existed. In the original pilot episode, Andy Taylor appeared completely alone. No deputy, no Barney Fife. Don Knotts was sitting at home watching TV when he saw Andy Griffith in the backdoor pilot on the Danny Thomas Show. He immediately picked up the phone and asked straight out, "How can a sheriff not have a deputy?" Thanks to that life-saving question, the team decided to add the character Barney Fife, a nervous, clumsy, but incredibly charming guy. And from a temporary supporting role, Barney quickly became the second heart of the entire series. The perfect combination between calm Andy and quirky Barney is what made Mayberry so special. If it weren't for that phone call, we might never have had the legendary Barney Fife 17. Andy Griffith initially didn't want to do the Andy Griffith Show. Do you still remember the warm feeling when Andy Taylor appeared with his gentle smile and calm voice in every episode? However, the truth behind it is extremely surprising. Andy Griffith once hated the idea of this series so much that he almost turned it down flat. When veteran producer Sheldon Leonard came to meet him in New York and pitched the concept of a sheriff in a small town, Griffith's first reaction was doubt and dislike. He thought the idea was too simple, bland, and even boring compared to the popular Western gunfight shows or loud family sitcoms of the time. Griffith admitted he wasn't interested at all and nearly said no right away. It was only because he respected and liked Sheldon Leonard that he reluctantly agreed to give it a try. Even in the early filming days, he was still worried the show would become a bland comedy full of cheap slapstick. He insisted that the writers make Andy Taylor realistic and deep, not turn him into a cheap joke. Luckily, that try decision changed his entire career. But few people know that the classic show we love today almost never existed simply because Andy Griffith initially didn't want to star in it. Are you surprised to learn that the father of Mayberry once hated his own series? 16. Andy Taylor's love life was a real challenge. In the show, Andy Taylor was a widower, gentle, wise, and very good at attracting women. But behind the scenes, building a romantic storyline for Andy was incredibly difficult. In the first season, Andy was paired with Ellie Walker, a smart, independent, and modern pharmacist. However, Eleanor Donahue, who played Ellie, quickly felt out of place and uncomfortable. Many funny lines originally written for her were given to Barney Fife instead. She later shared that she felt like a bird out of the nest, too immature to play Andy's love interest. The pressure became so great that Eleanor decided to leave the show after just one season. She openly said she didn't feel like she was building the character correctly and needed to protect her mental health. Years later, when she met Andy Griffith at an event, she even apologized for leaving so suddenly. Andy replied politely, but with some regret, "Don't worry about it. We just didn't know what to write for you anymore." After Ellie, the writers introduced Helen Crump as Andy's long-term girlfriend. But it took many seasons for this relationship to become stable and eventually lead to marriage in the spin-off. It turns out that even the ideal man of Mayberry had to struggle to find happiness on screen 15. Character names were taken from real places near Mount Airy. Have you ever wondered why the names in the Andy Griffith Show sound so familiar and comforting? The interesting truth is that most character names were inspired by real locations around Mount Airy, Andy Griffith's hometown. Andy Taylor reminds people of Taylorsville. Floyd Lawson comes from Lawsonville, Ellie Walker from Walkertown, and Helen Crump from Crumpler. All these places are within just a few dozen miles of Mount Airy. What surprises fans the most is that for many years, Andy Griffith firmly denied that Mayberry was a direct copy of Mount Airy. He said Mayberry was just a typical southern town. But when fans discovered all these name coincidences, many believe the producers cleverly drew from real life to create a sense of authenticity and familiarity. A fictional town but built from the real roads and towns around Andy's home. That's exactly why Mayberry always feels so warm and strangely familiar. 14. The entire Mayberry was built in California. Have you ever watched The Andy Griffith Show and imagined yourself stepping into a peaceful Southern American town with quiet streets, white wooden fences, and air so fresh you wanted to move there? Unfortunately, it was all an illusion. The entire Mayberry we love was built completely in California. The cozy interior scenes of the Taylor house, the sheriff's office, and even Floyd's barber shop were all filmed at Desilu Studios in Hollywood. The iconic streets of Mayberry, with trees lining both sides, were shot at the 40 acres backlot in Culver City, a famous movie ranch that served many classic films. Although viewers felt Mayberry was part of North Carolina, in reality, it never existed outside the screen. It was all the clever work of the set designers to create a little paradise everyone wanted to live in. Mayberry was so beautiful that we forgot. It was just a movie set in faraway California. 13. The legendary fishing spot of Andy and Opie was actually in the middle of Los Angeles. The most classic image from the Andy Griffith Show is probably the scene of Andy and Opie walking leisurely along the lakeside, skipping stones across the rippling water, accompanied by the cheerful whistling at the beginning of each episode. Millions of viewers believed it was a quiet, secluded lake in the countryside of North Carolina. But the truth is shocking. That famous fishing lake was located right in the heart of Los Angeles. Specifically, it was the Upper Franklin Reservoir in Franklin Canyon Park, an artificial lake on the border between Los Angeles and Beverly Hills. Just a 10-minute drive from skyscrapers' busy highways and the hustle of Hollywood, the crew chose this location to film Mayberry's most peaceful natural moments. Franklin Canyon Park spans over 600 acres with lush trees and a calm lake, making it a green lung in the middle of the city used for the series. It turns out, the peaceful paradise we dream about while watching the show was just a stone's throw from the noise of a big city. 12. The famous theme song only had whistling, but it actually had lyrics. Every time you hear the cheerful, lively whistling at the beginning of the Andy Griffith Show, your heart probably feels lighter, and you can't help but smile out of habit. But did you know this iconic theme song actually once had full lyrics? The melody was composed by Earl Hagen, who also performed the whistling himself. In 1961, actor Everett Sloane, who appeared in one episode, thought the melody was too catchy to exist only as an instrumental. He wrote the lyrics and named the song The Fishin' Hole. The version with lyrics was never used in the television series. Instead, Andy Griffith recorded it and included it on the show's official album. His simple, warm voice made the song even more authentic and heartfelt, perfectly matching the image of the country father he portrayed. The familiar whistling we love was only the surface of a complete song that very few people know about. 11. There was actually a second Andy Griffith Show. Do you still remember the regret you felt when The Andy Griffith Show ended in 1968 at the peak of its popularity? Millions of viewers thought Andy Griffith would retire peacefully with his gentle sheriff image. But he chose a bold and surprising path. Just 2 years later, Andy returned with a brand new series called Headmaster, where he played the headmaster of a luxurious prep school in California. However, audiences rejected it. The series only lasted 14 episodes before being canceled. CBS refused to give up. In 1971, they launched The New Andy Griffith Show, a second Andy Griffith Show. This time, Andy played Andy Sawyer, a man who returned to his small hometown to become mayor. There was no Mayberry, no Barney, but they tried to recreate the small-town atmosphere. Even Don Knotts made a guest appearance in a role very similar to Barney Fife. Still, the series only ran for 10 episodes before being canceled. Audiences clearly only wanted to see Andy as Andy Taylor, not as a new character. The failure of the second Andy Griffith Show was an expensive lesson. Sometimes audiences don't want their favorite star to change. 10. Opie's mother. The most mysterious absent character in television throughout all 249 episodes of The Andy Griffith Show. There was one important character who almost never appeared: Opie's mother. We only know she passed away when Opie was very young through a few brief mentions. No name, no photo, no stories or memories about her. She was like a silent ghost in the Taylor family. This absence was not accidental. The writers deliberately kept Opie's mother in the shadows, so viewers would focus entirely on the relationship between Andy, Opie, and Aunt Bee. They wanted to emphasize that Andy was both father and mother, and this small family could still be happy despite the loss. But this very mystery made Opie's mother one of the most intriguing absent characters in American television history. Millions of viewers wondered, who was she? How did she die, and why wasn't she mentioned more? A character who never appeared but left such a large void. 9. Andy Taylor's house address kept changing throughout 8 seasons. This is one of the strangest details that The Andy Griffith Show fans have debated for decades. Throughout 8 seasons, the home of Andy, Opie, and Aunt Bee kept moving. One episode mentioned 332 Maple Road, another said 24 Elm Street, and at one point Andy himself said they lived at 14 Maple Road. The address changed so much that dedicated fans seriously argued, where exactly does the Taylor family live? This wasn't a careless mistake by the writers. It was typical of 1960s television. There was no strict series Bible like today. Whenever a script needed an address for a comedic situation, the writers would just pick a random number or street name that sounded good without checking previous episodes. As a result, the Taylor family home became the most famous mobile house in television history. A small detail, but enough to make fans shake their heads, laugh, and argue for a lifetime. 8. Mayberry looked peaceful on screen, but it was all built in California. Do you still remember the peaceful feeling when looking at Mayberry's quiet streets, lined with lush trees, white wooden fences, and air so fresh it felt like time had stopped? However, the harsh truth is, Mayberry never existed in North Carolina. The entire town we loved was built completely in California, thousands of miles away from Andy Griffith's real hometown. The cozy interior scenes of the Taylor house, the sheriff's office, and Floyd's barbershop were all filmed at Desilu Studios in Hollywood. The iconic streets with their small-town southern feel were shot at the 40 Acres backlot in Culver City, a famous movie ranch used for dozens of classic films. Mayberry, which we thought was a peaceful southern paradise, was actually just an illusion created in the middle of noisy Hollywood. A town so peaceful that people wanted to move there turned out to be completely fictional. 7. The emotional reunion in Return to Mayberry. After nearly 20 years apart in 1986, Mayberry surprisingly returned with the television movie Return to Mayberry, one of the most anticipated reunions in television history. Most of the original cast, including Andy Griffith, Don Knotts, Ron Howard, and George Lindsay, came back. This time, they didn't film at the old studio since 40 Acres had been demolished but rebuilt Mayberry in the town of Los Olivos, California. In the movie, Andy Taylor returns after many years working in Cleveland. Opie is now grown up and about to become a father. Barney Fife is acting as temporary sheriff. The story begins when Andy considers running for sheriff, leading to a dramatic but deeply touching confrontation between two best friends. Return to Mayberry not only brought back familiar laughter, but was also filled with nostalgia, making millions of viewers laugh and cry as they watched Mayberry come back to life once more. It was a beautiful tribute to a series that had become a legend. 6. Andy Griffith was the prank king of the entire cast in real life on screen. Andy Taylor was a mature, calm man who always solved problems wisely. But in real life, Andy Griffith was a true prankster, famous as the prank king of the whole production. Don Knotts was his favorite target. Andy would sneak up and suddenly drop a metal film can on the floor to make a loud noise that scared Knotts, or deliberately call him by his real name, Jess, a name Knotts hated. George Goober Lindsay once woke up from a nap and was stunned to see duck intestines hanging all over the dressing room, all Andy Griffith's handiwork. Behind the serious, steady father figure on screen was an Andy Griffith full of humor who loved teasing everyone and made the whole cast laugh nonstop. Who would have guessed that the father of Mayberry was such a prankster 5? George Lindsay almost got the role of Gomer Pyle. Do you still remember the character Gomer Pyle with his innocent smile, signature drawn-out golly, and hilarious situations? Interestingly, this iconic role almost went to George Lindsay, the actor who later played Goober Pyle. With his extensive stage experience, Lindsay entered the audition full of confidence. However, an almost unknown actor at the time named Jim Nabors showed up and completely impressed Andy Griffith with his pure, innocent, and charming performance. Andy firmly chose Nabors for the role of Gomer. Although George Lindsay lost the part, he didn't leave empty-handed. The team created an entirely new character just for him, Goober Pyle Gomer's clumsy but lovable cousin. Thanks to that, Lindsay remained part of Mayberry and became an indispensable member of the little town. One audition decision changed the fate of 2 characters and 2 actors forever. 4. Despite huge success, The Andy Griffith Show won very few awards. The Andy Griffith Show was a true phenomenon in 1960s American television. For 8 seasons, it never dropped out of the top 7 in Nielsen ratings, and ended its run at number 1 nationwide in 1968. Millions of American families loved it. The characters became cultural icons, and laughter spread everywhere. Yet the awards told a completely different story. Andy Griffith, the lead actor, never won a single Emmy, and wasn't even nominated once for his role as Andy Taylor. Meanwhile, Don Knotts won 5 Emmys for playing Barney Fife, and Frances Bavier also received one in 1967. A hugely successful show with audiences, but the lead actor was largely ignored by critics and awards. This remains one of the strangest and most unfortunate facts in television history. 3. Howard McNear Floyd the Barber suffered a stroke during filming Floyd the Barber, the chatty, witty barber who was always the center of gossip in Mayberry, was one of the most beloved characters. In 1963, while filming Season 3, Howard McNear suddenly suffered a severe stroke. The left side of his body was paralyzed, making movement and acting extremely difficult. Many thought this would end his career. However, Andy Griffith and the production team refused to abandon Floyd. They completely changed the way they filmed, using chairs and supports so he could sit or lean against tables and the barber chair. Most scenes of Floyd working only showed his right hand, while his left hand remained nearly motionless. Whenever he needed to stand, he was positioned behind chairs or props to hide his limitations. Despite his serious physical condition, McNear's spirit and acting talent remained completely intact. he still delivered his witty, sharp lines as before. Viewers barely noticed he was fighting illness behind the scenes. It was an incredible display of courage and determination amid the laughter of Mayberry. 2. The show switched from black and white to color, the biggest change. Do you still remember the early episodes of The Andy Griffith Show, with their classic black and white images full of nostalgia and warmth? That was the style of the first 5 seasons, a total of 159 episodes. But in 1965, everything suddenly changed. As color technology became popular, networks began forcing top series to switch to color to appear more modern. The Andy Griffith Show was no exception. Starting from season 6, the entire show was filmed in color. This transition brought brighter, more vibrant images, but it also made many fans feel that Mayberry wasn't the same anymore. The simple, intimate black and white frames suddenly became brighter and more modern. Some even felt the change took away some of the classic charm of the small town. Still, the final 3 seasons maintained their appeal and brought the total to 249 episodes for the legendary series. From black and white to color, a major technical turning point, but also the end of the classic Mayberry version that many people loved most. 1. Andy Griffith was supposed to be the funniest character, but ended up as the straight man. At the beginning, Andy Griffith was expected to bring a humorous character similar to his role in No Time for Sergeants, a slow country boy who was very funny. In fact, in the earliest episodes, Andy Taylor had some clumsy, awkward moments. But as more eccentric characters appeared, nervous, Barney Fife innocent, Gomer Pyle drunk, Otis Campbell clumsy, Goober Pyle, Mayberry became chaotic enough. At that point, Andy Griffith realized a surprising truth. Oh my God, I just realized I'm the straight man. I'm playing the straight guy for all these weirdos around me. From a character meant to be the main source of comedy, Andy Taylor was gradually reshaped into a calm, wise, intelligent man, and the solid anchor for the entire town. He stopped being the funny one, and became the one who kept everything balanced. This change is exactly what made the Andy Griffith Show so special and meaningful, not just comedy, but also warmth and humanity. Andy Griffith sacrificed his own comedic role so that Mayberry could become perfect. Even though more than 60 years have passed, Mayberry still lives forever in the hearts of audiences thanks to its authenticity, humanity, and simple but deeply touching laughter. Which of these 20 facts surprised you the most? Let me know in the comments below. Which character is your favorite Barney Fife? Aunt Bee or Floyd the Barber?